Hello, welcome to the Metaverse Tree Journal. Today we have with us the one and only Heavily Bills. Hello, Heavily.
Hello.
His real name is not Heavily Bills, it's Jason. And we have Jason here with us today at the Metaverse Tree Journal. This is the first episode of Reading Between the Lines with Tan. And I have a few very good questions I have for Jason. So, with that, before we begin, Jason, why don't you give us a brief introduction about yourself so everyone could know who you are and what do you do?
Well, sure. I've been an Uplander since February of 2021. Very active in the community. I'm one of the drivers behind the debate channel, and jump into general chat quite often to chime in and joke with everybody. My personal background is in concert promotion and concert venue operations. I'm an entrepreneur and investor as well. In a couple different businesses. I've been involved in blockchain and crypto for a few years. I've been involved in starting a blockchain company specializing in identity management, which is actually how I discovered Upland. Because when I joined that company, I didn't know much about blockchain. And so I was doing research and stumbled upon Upland and thought, oh, this looks neat. I'll give this a try. And it turned out to be a great platform to get to know how blockchain technologies work and how tokenomics work. And I got hooked and have been enjoying playing it for the better part of 2 years now. And I see it as one of the best games out there. Whether you consider it a metaverse or not, really doesn't matter. I don't really consider it a metaverse. I just consider it a game, and one that has the potential of sort of becoming an asset class for people on its own. I really was sort of against that thinking for a while, but now I'm starting to shift now that my account value has grown to a point well beyond what I put in it. I've started to consider, oh, maybe this is something that has potential to be an investment, but still just a game, and that's what I love about it.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this question then. Did someone introduce you to Upland or did you naturally find it?
No, I naturally found it. Literally, as I was doing Google searches on different platforms that utilize tokenomics, it just popped up in a Google search. And I'm a gamer too, always have been since I was a kid. Um, and I love Monopoly, family
Yeah.
game nights and stuff. So the whole idea of a NFT based game that had an economy with tokenomics appealed to me instantly. So I joined just like everyone else did, as a visitor, and bought a couple properties in Fresno, and sort of liked the basic mechanic of collections and the earnings mechanic, and plunked in $5, just to escalate to Uplander status, flipped a couple properties and said, oh, this is neat, it works. There are other people playing this, and that got me excited, and here we are almost 2 years later, and I'm still doing it.
Yep. In fact, so it's really great that you mentioned Monopoly because a lot of people don't know this, but originally back when you joined and back when I joined as well, Upland had the white paper, and that white paper
Mhm.
mentioned that they're trying to create a Monopoly version of the metaverse, and
Yeah.
that's how Upland started. Now they've changed that, but that's how they started. And I believe both you and I had the same discovery process because the way I went about it, I was like, okay, metaverse is getting hot, and I joined when Facebook changed its name to Meta, right? That's how I came to know about metaverse. And essentially, I was like, okay, let's look at the land prices. So I narrowed down five metaverses: the Sandbox, Decentraland, Axie Infinity, Gala Games, and Upland. And ironically, the cheapest within the other four, excluding Upland, was around $30,000 per land. Compare that to $5 in Upland.
Right.
So for
Mhm.
me, that is a no-brainer that the middle class of the world, the people in Asia, the people in India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, or people who are from the middle income emerging economies, they're not going to go to any of those places. They may go as players, but you want to own, as humans, we want to own something of our own within an ecosystem, right? So my personal analogy was that that's how Upland is going to grow, because it's affordable for everyone. $5, $10 is not that big of an amount, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah. However, so when you look at that um, as a strength of Upland, how do you see that developing, and how do you see the next, let's not call it the next billion people, because we're at around 200 300,000 unique landowners. Let's look at the next 300,000 users that are going to come to Upland, and where do you see the value proposition of that coming out from?
Well, I think the original value description, which the value proposition, which you accurately described, will still be very, very valid. The fact that it's got a low barrier to entry for players is a huge advantage for Upland. So whereas other metaverses, you have to spend a ton of money to get, one property and then try to make that property unique, that's just not accessible for most people around the world, even in America, to say nothing of developing economies. Upland, by contrast, enables you to, get a couple of properties for very little money or even free. The free to play model works, and, build from there. And, in my own experience, having started small, just like everyone else, you're able to compound, your gains and accumulate more properties relatively rapidly. And the game offers, of course, some advantages to new players in order to do that. So as opposed to buying one property uh, and figuring out how to make it unique within, a metaverse setting, Upland is more about how do you strategically position yourself within the overall economy, and you can do so in an infinite number of ways. Instead of one property, you can focus on building up a neighborhood, or getting to know a neighborhood really well, and take that and turn it into getting to know a city really well. And then, decide whether you want to, engage in a diversification play from there, and focus on collections or on building. There's lots of different options within Upland that don't require creativity. And that's another, I think, advantage of Upland. All the other metaverses that are, say, more immersive, which a lot of people want out of the metaverse, sort of require a little bit of technical know-how, to distinguish yourself. Upland doesn't. It's accessible to anyone. And even my strength in succeeding in the game has been just kind of understanding numbers and finance. But you don't even need to understand numbers and finance. You can really wing it and get a sense of how the market works without a lot of advanced knowledge, and then learn along the way. Which I think is another, strength of Upland. It offers a lot of learning opportunity for people wanting to learn about, the financial aspects of real estate investing, or, crypto investing, or metaverse investing, what have you.
If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you think what's being discussed is nice and you'd like to join the discussion, please comment below. And if you'd like to stay updated, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you. Yep.
These are all strengths.
Absolutely. And I'm totally there with you on the point of immersiveness, right? So if I look at it from that perspective, there's this partner at Y Combinator called Anu Hariharan, right? She used to work at Andreessen Horowitz before. She has sort of created a blueprint for network effects, right? So when I look at Upland as a startup, not just a metaverse, Upland as a startup, right? Their corporate strategy has been to execute on the network effects, which is the harder part, right? Within the news, within last 1 or 2 weeks, you would have noticed DAP Radar and Cointelegraph and all saying that the metaverse is dead and there's not enough players. You have only
Mhm.
1,000 players within Decentraland or other metaverses, right? Which is true because they executed the immersiveness, but they did not execute the network effects. Whereas you compare that to Upland, which has roughly around 35 to 50,000 monthly active users, they have executed the network effects and not the immersiveness, which is fine because executing 3Ds is a task at which is doable, right? You throw a bunch of money at that problem and that can be solved. You hire 10,000 3D engineers, they can create the entire Upland metaverse, make it into a 3D world, right? That is doable. The hard part is executing the network effects. So when you're looking at Upland from that perspective, right? And we have a lot of people coming in, going out. Many people, as you know, in the past few weeks have sort of exited Upland as well because they may not be happy or whatever. Um, and here's a point that you and I have disagreed on a lot, which is the yields that Upland pays out, right? It used to be around 17%. Now it's at 14.7%. As you listen to the co-founders such as Idan, who in January said that eventually it will follow the same plan as central banks do, which is a zero interest rate policy. It will eventually go down. You think that is a mistake? Why do you think so? Please make your case.
Sure. Well, first of all, I strongly encourage people to engage in the debate, and I respect your opinion and everyone else's opinion. And in Upland, the we debate in good faith, and look at all sides of the issue. People take positions, people change their positions as well. So that it's a fun part of the game if you're involved in the community. So as to why I think earnings are a key and essential part of the game, it boils down to this. When we put money in and mint a property as a play to earn game, one of the promises of the game is that we somehow get to earn that money back. Upland takes our dollars and uses it to fund their operations as they should. But the value that we put in shouldn't just evaporate. I do think that we should be able to earn it back. And the exact rate, doesn't really matter to me so much. It's like you said, it started out at 17.3. It's now at 14 point something. And that's fine. They can make monetary decisions to tame inflation in the economy. But the fact is, there's not much inflation. Every time we mint a property, the liquidity that we previously had gets stored away in that property in the community pool. The game needs liquidity to grow. If we're to rebuild the world, we need liquidity, and earnings are an essential part of fueling that liquidity to expand into different cities. Right now, liquidity in the game stands at about 5.6 billion UPIX. And every time we mint a city, that goes down by 300 million sorry, yeah, 300 million to 500 million. At least recently, the past few cities, we in a few days we'll spend the equivalent of 300 to 500 million UPIX minting. Players are not joining fast enough to replenish the liquidity it requires to mint each new city. So we need the earnings, at least now, to supplement the liquidity to continue advancing the game. That's one of the reasons that I think earnings are essential.
Right. So let me ask you another question. And this is the counterpoint to your point, but I'd like your opinion on that as well. As the yield goes down, don't you think that the price, the floor of the upland properties, don't you think that would go up? So for instance, right now you have somewhere around 9 to 10,000 on an average, the floor price around upland metaverse, right? If the interest rates go down, and I don't believe they'll go down directly to zero, it'll be a step-by-step process, right? Like it went from 17 to 14, it may go to 11 and then go to 9, or there would be a process. Don't you think when that happens, the floor rises in tandem with that to then compensate for a lower interest on the properties that you hold?
No, not at all. Because if there's less liquidity, liquidity means the amount of currency in a marketplace. If there's less currency in the marketplace, that means people can afford less. So prices would go down because people would be scrambling to get liquidity out of their properties. But there's less, other players would have less liquidity. So they would have, the prices would go down, not up. The idea, we tend to associate upland with the real world, right? So let's talk about how it's not reflective of the real world for a second. In the real world, a 14% or 17% interest rate or earnings rate sounds super high, right? That would drive inflation massively in the real world. But the difference is, in the real world, when people buy a property, that money goes somewhere and gets re-injected into the economy by someone else. In upland, it's very different. When you mint a property, your UPEX gets stored away. It's locked away in the community pool for a period of time. So it's not liquid in the economy. So in upland, a 14% interest rate is not high because that money doesn't stay liquid once you mint.
Right. So let me get your opinion on this as well. As we're looking at the community pool where all the money goes to, right? Do you think the community pool is doing the work of what I would put an equivalent as Federal Reserve? Do you think community pool is acting like a central bank?
No, not at all, because it doesn't lend the money back out. The players earn it back at whatever the earnings rate for a minted property is. So it doesn't operate like a Federal Reserve in that respect, because the Federal Reserve actually lends the money back out to banks.
Do you think it should to Meta Ventures?
No, I don't, because I think the community pool is reflective of the value that players have put into it, and they are directly associated with the properties that players have minted. And although it's not a contract, it kind of functions as one. When you buy a property, and I don't want to call it a contract, but think of it like one for a minute. When you buy a property and you decide to mint a property, say for 10,000 UPEX, you do so with the understanding that you're going to earn that back at a rate of 14.7%. So, you go into it eyes wide open, knowing, oh, that could change, but the incentive to invest is a lot lower if you think it's going to change dramatically. So,
Yep. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you think what's being discussed is nice and you'd like to join the discussion, please comment below. And if you'd like to stay updated, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you. Moving on, let me ask you a question on the Upland metaverse as a whole. Is there a feature that you're looking forward to that you think is going to be really great to have within Upland metaverse? And is there a feature that Upland has not sort of thought of at the moment that you would suggest them to at least consider?
Well, the ones that I'm most interested in observing are the ones that are building immersive layer two gameplay options. I'm personally not interested in a lot of the like I probably wouldn't involve myself. I'm interested sort of academically in how those are developing.
Yeah.
I play more by the numbers, so I probably won't engage much in that. But the reason I think they're important and why I follow them is because players want them. There's enough players out there that want that immersive element that I think it's important for Upland to embrace them, whether they do so internally or let third-party players, build on a layer two basis. That's what I'm most enthusiastic about, continuing to follow. I'm personally more interested in Upland adopting features aligned with game models like SimCity. And this has been a hot debate topic in Debate Channel, whether Upland should adopt more simulated features. I could envision, certain buildings functioning as non P2P commercial enterprises, meaning, if you buy a building, it serves a function in a neighborhood to boost its rating or to give players a way to earn more, just by virtue of owning the building or staking Spark to it. I've also advocated for something called the population token. I think one of the limitations Upland has in quote unquote rebuilding the world is that there are not enough players to reflect a world population. So the problem that I think about a lot is how do you inject something into the economy that represents people, above and beyond the players themselves, and create, some sort of simulation that gives those people, something to do in the economy.
Right. Great idea. What would be the benefit of this population token?
It would offer a different form of gameplay. Maybe there are players out there that, aren't too interested in the property ownership aspect. I think everyone will own a property or several or hundreds of properties. But if you could own, say, instead of properties, 100 population tokens, you could give those population tokens, something to do in the economy, whether it's boost the productivity of a factory, or contribute to the neighborhood rating. By giving those populations tokens a residence, it could help fuel the buildings, the structure economy in Upland. Because right now there are, I think, more living units in Upland than there are players, because we're building, but there aren't enough actual players to fill all the living units. So I think a population token would be a good way to sort of add a layer to the economy.
And do you think commercialization helps in that? Bringing in brands and companies that can bring business within Upland?
Oh, totally. I mean, that's a whole different sort of train of thought. But Upland is definitely ripe for corporate sponsorship. It has a strong player base that I think has only scratched the surface. They're just shy of 300,000 token holders now. I think that could easily get into the millions. And then that's a huge marketable audience that Upland can leverage to sell corporate sponsorship.
If I was to ask you to predict the first corporate sponsors, first few, who do you think corporate companies that would come to Upland first?
Well, I would think any national restaurant chain, any national chain in any industry, I think should take an interest in Upland.
Absolutely. How important do you think uh, executing the feature of an escrow is to Upland in order to attract commercial activity? So I'll give you an example. For example, Russell Envy, who's the mayor of Portage Park, he has a lot of properties in Portage Park, right? A lot of people have properties. They don't want to sell them, but they want to develop that into a commercial area, right? In order to do that, I need to somehow create a lease and allow people to use my property or my land without transferring the ownership, but letting them use that for a specific period. Now that'll have to be executed using a smart contract. But
Mhm.
how do you think, and do you think that is something that should be on one of the topmost priority of Upland?
I don't know if it's a top priority, but it's a great idea. The idea of being able to lease your properties is a wonderful idea. Lease them for what though becomes the next question. And right now Upland is very focused on player to player commerce, and creating meta ventures and giving us a way to sell NFTs to each other. Um, and I think that's great. But that's where my concept of adding a simulation layer to the economy comes in. And you mentioned Portage Park, which is a great example. They're heavily developed and have a huge following in the game. Um, right, but they built a ton of structures, but what do you do with them? There are only so many players
Yep.
and only so many players interested in P2P commerce. And that's why I think it wouldn't hurt to add a layer of simulated commerce as well. Similar to SimCity.
Yep.
I think I played SimCity when I was a kid and loved it. And I think Upland has a similar opportunity.
Interesting. Okay. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you think what's being discussed is nice and you'd like to join the discussion, please comment below. And if you'd like to stay updated, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you. Um, let me go ahead and ask you, what do you think of the latest news that we got yesterday that Qatar is launching within Upland? And how do you see that
I think
coming
it's
over?
great. I think it's great for the game. It fits my personal strategy, which is to diversify and being 50% international. Um, I haven't heard confirmation that Qatar is the next one, but yeah, it seems to be a strong indication since they showed the neighborhood out, well, at
Yeah,
least one of the neighborhood outlines.
yeah,
Um, the motivation seems to be aligned with the FIFA World Cup. The final games are going to be played in
absolutely.
Qatar, which I think is great. Um, there could be any number of reasons, strategically or opportunistically, for Upland to expand its city footprint in any number of directions, and that's as good as any, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
The best question I've seen in general chat is how how are we gonna type in Arabic
Uh,
Arabic street names?
however,
But I meant
to
we'll figure that
to
out.
that question, I think because there's this one stadium that has its card there. I think all the names are in English. They've just converted the Arabic names into English, similar to
Okay.
how I think they did that with Portugal and Brazil as well. So I believe that all the names would be in English. But the one question that personally I think of is when you think of both Portugal and Brazil launching within the metaverse, right? After they were both launched and a while, Brazil, Upland, sorry, launched the language Portuguese within Upland.
Mhm.
I wonder if they're going to do that same thing with Arabic. If they do, that'll be a whole range of new players that'll come on to Upland.
I would hope so. I would hope so. I think that would be great. One of the great things about Upland and being involved in the community is you really do get to engage with people around the world. And
Yep.
I've made game friends and in the Netherlands and the UK and Australia and all over the place. And I enjoy that. The Philippines
Absolutely.
is another big one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
So
wonderful.
yeah, yeah. Um, so let me ask you, what strategy do you use personally? Because we all know there's different
Mhm.
strategies of gameplay within Upland, and any of the other strategy that you don't use but you really like and you think they can work for various kinds of players. Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, my strategy evolves. I started out just kind of pursuing the standard and limited collections, but then I decided to, really focus on one city and becoming an expert on it. And at the time, that was Chicago. And at the time, you could mint a property below the floor price. So that was a huge advantage and a good growth opportunity. Um, from there, it evolved into just a diversification strategy. I decided I wanted to have a large presence in 4 cities, um, for a couple of different reasons. Just diversification is a kind of standard, value investing, um, principle. Uh, but it also has the advantages of maintaining a strong liquidity position. If you own a lot in one city, you're really only addressing 1/20th of the market, let's say, if there are 20 cities operating. So your liquidity at any given time, meaning your ability to sell and generate UPEX on an ongoing basis, is somewhat limited. So I decided, well, I don't want to be over diversified and basically create an index of the market. I want to try to beat the market. So I chose 4 cities that I thought had the best upside and decided to devote an equal portion of my net worth to each one of those cities. And so once I accomplished that, I added another city, using fueling my buying for that new city from the original 4, and then another and another, and I got up to 11 cities in my portfolio, all sort of equally balanced in terms of what I had invested into them. And at that point, I realized, oh man, now my portfolio is acting like an index. I'm not really beating the market anymore. So I whittled that down. And when they launched Brazil, I decided I'm just going to reset the whole thing. So I sold out of pretty much everything and bought a whole. I spent like over 4 million in Brazil alone. 4 million UPEX. Yeah. And so I'm resetting that strategy now. So I started with Rio. I'm adding, um, Porto, as my second city in the strategy, and then Qatar will be the third most likely.
Great. Um, so as you are sort of looking at this from a portfolio angle, do you think, and this isn't my creative mind just going off track, but do you think that there is an opportunity for, let's say, an Upland stock exchange and Upland mutual fund where you don't need to go and personally mint, but you can have like a Upland fund manager and they manage your assets. You just buy perhaps a stock or a share within a mutual fund within Upland, and that manager goes and mints those cities for you.
I do. It gets a little tricky though in the context of multi-accounting. Um, the idea of having a sanctioned, meaning allowed, sort of account manager is a good idea, I think. Um, I personally play in a small team of family members. My dad and my wife and my daughter play as well. And so they're real people and they play, they touch the buttons and move the mouse, but I direct the strategy for all of us and we look at our portfolio as a whole. Um, so, the idea of sanctioning that activity within Upland, allowing people to operate as account managers on behalf of people they may not personally know, is a good idea. I just don't know how you allow that without complicating the whole conversation right now about multi-accounting, which Upland seems to just be getting under control.
Yep. So probably not in the near future, but it is down there, say 5 year down the line mark feature or
Yeah,
something like that.
hopefully not even 5 years. I don't think it would take that long to make that a possibility. But yeah, I hope that's something that they openly allow, even if it's something you need to buy a game business license to do. I think it'd be great.
Yep, absolutely. Um, so with that being said, uh, is there anything you want to tell us about your startup that you're doing? Because I've heard quite a lot of good things about the startup that you're working on. Would love to hear what you are doing.
Well, it's not metaverse related really. The one that I've had for 8 years, that is just it's kind of a boring business, to be honest. It's just a warehousing, logistics, and distribution company based in California. And so we work with a variety of companies to pick, pack, and ship the products and handle returns and things like that. Not much to plug. In blockchain, I work with a company called Authenticity, that tokenizes personal identity attributes. So that, again, it's not metaverse related, but it's another exciting utility application of blockchain and NFTs. So those are, and I drew a lot of inspiration from Upland in developing and designing the tokenomics for that business. Actually, I discovered Upland during my research, and then have applied some knowledge from Upland back into that company as well.
If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you think what's being discussed is nice and you'd like to join the discussion, please comment below. And if you'd like to stay updated, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you. Right. So the reason I sort of brought up your personal business and especially the warehouse side of business, within the last 2 weeks, you would have noticed the whole issue with Lufthansa and them saying you can't bring Apple AirTags, and then they reversed their position and said you would be allowed to do that to track your own luggage within the experience of boarding your flight, going to your destination, getting it back, right? One of the use cases within Metaverse and Web3 especially is the open source trackability in e-commerce, in physical e-commerce,
Absolutely.
right? And you know where your package is at any time because of that, right? Do you see that impacting your warehouse business, and do you think those kinds of innovation not only helping you but the public at large, everyone within the warehouse and logistical businesses, do you think that is something that would shape the future?
Yes, and it is something I thought a lot about. You can definitely tokenize a physical asset, um, and or an experiential asset you can tokenize as well. I think one of the best use cases that has come out in the past couple months has been the partnership between Ticketmaster and Dapper Labs. They're tokenizing concert tickets. So concert tickets are NFTs now, and I think that's brilliant. You could tokenize a boarding pass on an airplane. You could tokenize a luggage tag, as you suggested. Those are all definite use cases for NFT technology. I'm way more interested in those kind of developments within the blockchain and NFT space than I am the pixel art and creative aspects of it.
Right.
I
Absolutely.
would like us to tokenize mortgages, which I think
Absolutely.
Upland is sort of building a test platform for. There's absolutely no reason why a house cannot be tokenized.
I would love to see that. I would honestly love to see that. Um, but yeah, within that, on Metaverse Street Journal, we've often talked about the different kinds of metaverses, right? So we all know that there's an open metaverse and a closed metaverse, and there's a centralized metaverse and a decentralized metaverse. Upland fits in the category of centralized yet open metaverse, right? We often hear about open and decentralized metaverses, such as your Sandbox, such as your Decentraland, such as your Gala Games. Gala, in fact, has just partnered with Upland, as we know. So when you look at these different kinds of metaverses, and they all have their own pros and cons, right? What do you think is something that would go and sort of not only survive this Web3 winter, the crypto and Web3 winter that we're going through, but also thrive in the next 5 years or something? Which of these uh, open versus closed, and decentralized versus centralized metaverses is going to shape the future?
Well, right now, so I'm just going to wing it here, but right now, Upland, I would say, is not decentralized, but that's okay. This obsession with decentralization is a little bit overblown because no one really knows what it means. In the crypto context, it means there is no central authority.
Yeah,
That all transactions are recorded on a blockchain, and you can transact with anyone else who has a wallet, right?
right.
And that makes sense. But in a metaversal context, where you're trying to develop an economy, um, I think you do need some degree of guidance in that process. And in saying that you need guidance, that implies some degree of centralization, someone helping to facilitate decisions. Um, and I think that's okay. And I think Upland has struck a pretty good balance in allowing the economy within Upland to be decentralized, such that players don't have to go through Upland to transact with each other. But there is still the developers at Upland who are making the decisions about what cities to expand to, and different economic elements to add or to tweak along the way, as they do frequently, to the dismay of some. You can't make everyone happy all the time. I think Upland has struck a good balance, and its move with Gala Games to establish interoperability suggests a move towards decentralization. It at least sparks the conversation about whether Gala Games's concept of a metaverse and Upland can somehow work together, that the two economies can plug together. That's an interesting move, but how that's going to be executed at this point is anyone's guess. Right now, it seems limited to enabling us to be able to transfer assets between the platforms, and that's a great starting point. But the question of how to get the Gala Games economy, which is its own thing, also centralized, and the Upland economy to actually work together, is a whole different ball of wax. And I don't think anyone's solved that problem. And I don't think it's a problem that'll be solved anytime soon.
Yep, absolutely. Though, when I look at the whole interoperability aspect, we all know Upland is backed by Animoca Brands, and Animoca Brands backs a lot of the other metaverses, Axie Infinity, Sandbox, and many others, right? So for me, as a player or a concerned third party, when I'm looking at Upland, for me it's obvious that these different metaverses that cater to different audiences should rightfully operate within each other. Players within Upland can go to Sandbox, players within Sandbox can come to Upland, and all the other rest of them as well, right? So when I look at the whole interoperability play, I think interoperability is undersold. And and when you look at this whole Gala Games announcement, this is a huge announcement, but it didn't get that that coverage or traction, as I may call it, because this really starts, it opens the can of worms, right? Because then both our worlds are essentially colliding into something greater. um, and when you're looking at sort of interoperability, it not only helps the people who have meta ventures, but then it gives a new angle to block explorers, right? Because your block explorers can now go to other metaverses. So when you're looking at the whole interoperability play, what are a few obvious use cases that you see with interoperability between Upland and Gala Games?
I don't see any obvious use cases, to be honest with you. Like I get the idea if you own a legit or a asset of that type in Upland, being able to just move it into another platform, into another platform's wallet is interesting, but whether people on that other platform will then have a use for it is a whole nother question that I don't think anyone's answered yet. So I don't, you know, it is a huge announcement that could have a lot of impact, but I would just add the caveat, maybe. Like I think it's highly experimental right now. They just want to show that it can be done. But what you can do with it once they've done it, I don't think they've fleshed out yet.
If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you think what's being discussed is nice and you'd like to join the discussion, please comment below. And if you'd like to stay updated, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you. Do you think cars are an obvious answer? Because like you can take your cars from Upland to Segala Games and drive around.
Sure. Yeah, and that's interesting. I did do a deep dive into what they're doing with Vox at Gala Games. And so just to summarize for people who haven't done the deep dive, the Vox is basically a Minecrafty, Robloxy looking world where you can that that is being developed for people that have a creative bent and want to be able to design their own assets. So the idea of, for example, of being able to create a car in Vox and drive that car in Upland to put it in Upland races is definitely interesting. That's fun. I don't think it at this point, I don't think it adds much to the overall game economy. I think those are assets that'll be traded among players who are enthusiastic about racing or designing things on either platform. But I haven't yet been able to imagine how it really helps to strengthen either economy independent of each other or even together.
Yep.
I think it's very niche at this point, which is fine. That's how things have to start.
Absolutely. So within the last quarter, we saw Upland launch the in-app voting, right? And that has a lot of use cases. I really like the way how the first vote went, right? Because you could see how many people actually voted.
Yeah.
And that was a really good thing because you can see maybe not all the people that were KYC'd, but you get a rough picture of how many people are KYC'd, right? Um, within voting, if you were to suggest a vote, what would that be to Upland?
Ooh, good question. I'd make it super simple. I would want players to be able to vote on, what the next collection should be. The issue with democratization of Upland at this point is that not enough people are engaged. A democracy relies on an educated population. And we saw with this very first vote that there were only a little over 5,000 people who were eligible to vote. And of those, only I want to say less than 3,500 actually voted. But there are 300,000 token holders. So if only 1% of your population is voting, that's a shaky start for democracy. you
Yeah.
know, you need to educate more people in the game before you start to deal with the big issues, in my opinion. Um, so I would keep the vote simple and relatively harmless. And the first vote was a lot of fun. Just voting on the name of what the block explorer should be was a hoot. And I nominated one of the names that got selected for the five that we voted on. Um, so that was fun to engage in that.
Do you think we would ever be able to vote on what the next city should be to launch in Upland?
That's a great example. Yeah, that I think that would be a perfect vote. Because there are any number of cities that we could nominate. And the ultimate outcome is relatively harmless to the economy. There's no bad decision at this point as to what the next city should be. So that would be a great way to engage people in the democratization process for sure. And I think that would engage a lot of people because people have strong opinions about what the next city should be.
Absolutely. So drawing up on your background, you have been in the entertainment industry, and you've worked with a lot of entertainment venues, right? As we look at Sandbox and few other metaverses, that um, we know that concerts are a big thing. Do you
Yeah.
think Upland should consider perhaps a 4th of July concert or any of the other random concerts and try to execute on the beta version of a 3D for perhaps one day? Choose a venue, choose a theater that has a landmark building built on it and create like a concert within the metaverse.
Absolutely. Those kind of concepts are, I want to say, easily executable. Um, and it doesn't even need to be 3D, to start. You could embed a live stream, via that players could get access to by, spending UpX on a ticket, So from an artist perspective, it wouldn't require a big technological leap at all. You could just plug a live stream into an Upland property. So I think that's a great idea that would create some engagement. From a business perspective, it gets a little complicated. You need to find an artist that's willing to do it, and they're going to want to get paid to do that, obviously. So they'd want to know what their incentives are. It would need to be promoted, plugged into whatever the tour promotion plan is. But those are ideas that Upland could definitely pursue and easily execute on from a technological standpoint.
Here's a selfish question. You just talked about live streams being there in Upland, right? Do you think Upland should bring in pictures and videos, something that is the landmark of Web 2? Maybe create like YouTube APIs so YouTube videos could come into Upland. Maybe if you have a
Yeah,
property, it may not be a metaverse per se, but if it's your house, if it's my house, I would like people to come to my home address. Now that I have a home address, look at my pictures, look at my Instagram, look at my YouTube, look at me as a player, not only as the in-game player, but me as a person as well. Again, my choice if I want to do that. But do you think Upland should allow integration of photos and videos in platforms such as your Instagram or Spotify or your YouTube and stuff like that?
I think those are great ideas. And I think that's the concept behind Upland's existing plan around showrooms and cafes. This concept of a cafe has been on the drawing board from almost day one, I believe. I don't know if it's in the white paper, but it's certainly been talked about among players and developers for, since I've started, with the cafe concept being a place where players can actually gather and through Upland, not just through Discord, but through Upland, interact with each other on a personal basis like you and I are now. So I think those concepts are definitely would be definitely good to add. I think it would improve engagement, and engagement ultimately improves the economy as well.
If I had to ask you of one player that does not receive enough attention, but they really help out the community, and someone everyone should follow, or maybe more than one as well, who do you think would that player be, or players?
Oh man. Man, I hate to name names, but I'll try. One player who I enjoy interacting with, who I see helping other players as well, is the character who goes by Banana Simulation on Discord, and I think his game name is Human Simulation. He's just a very positive player, and answers questions for new players. He's a young guy, so we all kind of know his personal story as well. He's very enthusiastic. He started small like everyone else, but interacts with the big boys at the same time, and everyone seems to respect him and enjoy him. He has a good sense of humor. So I like all players who bring to the community a willingness to share and be open and help new players, but also have a sense of humor. If you're involved in the general chat in the community, you better bring a sense of humor because there's a lot of verbal sparring and joking, and that makes the game fun.
If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you think what's being discussed is nice and you'd like to join the discussion, please comment below. And if you'd like to stay updated, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you. Sure. Who's your favorite Upland community manager?
Lizette.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think everyone would say that.
Yep. Do you treasure hunt?
I do occasionally. I hate to admit it because I don't like it. But if I'm sitting in between tasks at my computer and I've done all the things I wanted to do for my strategy, I'll jump in, and I usually have a rule of doing like 3 at a time. I'm not one of those people that'll spend hours and hours doing it. I don't care that much about gathering up boatloads of spark. The the time cost of it is not worth it to me. But I keep it light.
Do you think spark inflation is real?
I don't really follow it too much. If anything, it's deflating. If there's a lot more of it around, but I think that's okay. I mean, my theory on Spark is that if someone gets a little bit, they're going to want more. And so knowing that treasure hunting is a bit of a chore for most people, some people really enjoy it. I get that. But knowing that it's a chore for most people, if someone's able to get their first 0.1 spark to initiate a build, it's more likely that they're going to gravitate over to the Spark Exchange and want to rent Spark from other people. So right now, with more people getting Spark, I would say it's in a deflationary mode right now. But I think that's temporary. I think that, everybody having a little spark will cause more people to want more of it, which will shift that equation and make it more inflationary, which I think most players that own Spark and rent it out on the exchange would want it to be inflationary.
Do you think Life token is something that should be launched soon?
I hope so. I think that's cool. people are definitely taking more of an interest in curating, the little builds that they've done. That's one of the fun parts of the game. Even especially if you haven't amassed a large portfolio as of yet, but you have a few, and on one of them or a couple of them, you have a couple of houses. That's a game aspect. That's a creative thing you can do in the game is, plant little trees and build a white picket fence and really embellish it. Which is what the right now, without buildings having utility, the main thing that they offer is a differentiation. If you're willing to compromise on price, and not be really stubborn about expecting a really high markup on a building property, at the very least, having a building on your property differentiates it from the others around you. And so if you're not willing to compromise on price, you might as well spend time embellishing it and making it more different. And I think that's a good thing. And it's a creative, it's a way for players to creatively express themselves. And I like what I'm seeing for the players that from the players that are actually spending time developing decor models. I think the first one we saw was just a simple mailbox, but that was super exciting. Someone made a mailbox and they started to pop up in the game. And I've seen like outdoor patio sets and fire pits and things like that. And I think those are wonderful. I mean, they're super simple, but it's a creative expression, not only for the person that designed it, but for the people that appreciate what they're doing and want to buy them.
Absolutely. When of course, if we're talking about
And
this,
that will evolve, by the way. Like, so right now it's super simple and kind of silly, but that's totally okay. It should be super simple and silly. But I expect these things to get more elaborate and fancier and cooler over time.
when I was in high school, there was this website called Miniclip, and you could essentially have your digital pet that you would have to go every day. You'd have to feed them, you'd to take them for a walk, you had to do everything. If I look at the life token from that perspective, do you think we would be able to have a pet llama anytime soon?
Absolutely. Why not? And that ties into my whole concept of a population token and and the parallels, the potential parallels to Sim City. Like if we're able to spawn dogs and cats, why shouldn't there be people? And there's these little houses that have something to do or that we can manipulate and give them little jobs and have their happiness contribute to the neighborhood scores and things like that. And and it is super silly, but it's also fun and creative. And I hope Upland goes more in that direction.
Yep. So, in my research, when I was looking at various metaverses, I came across this interview of Mark Zuckerberg, who says that religion is very important to the growth of the metaverse, right? And we all know that there are various religious establishments within Upland. You see churches, you see mosques, you see Hindu temples, you see Jewish temples, all of the different religious establishments within Upland, right? Um, do you do you agree with the fact that when we have um, religious institutions coming onto metaverse, when we bring faith in the metaverse, that metaverse is going to take off?
I don't think it would be a driver of the growth of the metaverse. I think it's an inevitable, aspect of it. And as you said, there are already people who express their faith, um, in the community, and I think that's great. And there are people that collect, specifically make it a goal to collect, churches or mosques or synagogues, and that's great too. Whether those will ever have actual utility, uh, who knows? If you'll be able to attend service in the metaverse, I don't see why not. I imagine that'll happen. But I would disagree that it's a driver. of metaverse ecosystem or economy.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm all for any form of expression, creative or religious or whatever. The
Absolutely,
more creative and inclusive we can be, the better.
absolutely. Um, Here is a small sort of inquisitive question. With the whole midterm elections coming in US, do you ever see, we all know how President Trump sort of used the whole Facebook and Cambridge Analytica to his advantage, right? Do you see a smart politician ever using metaverse to run their campaign? Not for anything
I
else,
hope
but to
not.
run their campaign.
I hope not. And you know, Upland has pretty strict rules about not being political, you know, and I think that's a good thing. It's just a device, especially in the US, it's very divisive presently. Um, so I hope not. You know, let the game be a game. You know, there's some people that want to be totally immersed and somehow live their life, you know, through the game or the metaverse. But I think it's important for Upland and other metaverses to really just focus more on the gaming and creative aspects of economy.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of this interview. We have with us Heavily Bells, also known as Mr. Jason. It was a great session. It was my pleasure talking to you. Thank you, Jason.
Likewise, and it's wonderful to meet you face to face over Zoom.
Absolutely. Well, our final thought as we end the session is our saying, you be the arbiter of truth, the viewers of the Metaverse Street Journal. Thank you very much. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you think what's being discussed is nice and you'd like to join the discussion, please comment below. And if you'd like to stay updated, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you.